These are human beings, Julian. And their lives are at stake.
What about the lives of the soldiers and the civilians involved in these conflicts? Death squads, unreported civilian casualties, countless incidents of friendly fire. This is information the world needs to know.
A scene from The Fifth Estate, a new movie tracking the complicated and compelling story of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Assange, who is standing by to join us live, has taken some shots at the film, and he tried to persuade the actor who portrays him, Benedict Cumberbatch, to refuse the role. ABC's Lindsay Davis sat down with the actor to talk about that challenge and why he chose to accept the part.
Until now, British actor Benedict Cumberbatch has been most commonly recognized for his role in the BBC's critically acclaimed series Sherlock. And most recently is Captain Kirk's nemesis in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Why did you allow me to live?
And action.
Quite a departure from his starring role in the new film The Fifth Estate as WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, the man who's been called the world's most notorious transparency activist.
Attempting to criticize the messenger to distract from the power
of the message.
Playing Assange is complex enough, but it was further complicated by the fact that the famed whistleblower was opposed to the movie.
The difficulty, I guess, was to try and portray him as a three-dimensional human being, not vilify him or glorify him.
So you reach out to him, trying to get a fix on his character, and,
I did,
and how does Assange respond?
Well, he slammed the door pretty politely, but pretty firmly.
The door, he describes, was an eloquently crafted email written by Assange to Cumberbatch in which he says, "I believe you are a good person, but I do not believe that this film is a good film. It is going to smother the truthful version of events at a time when the truth is most in demand. By meeting with you, I would validate this wretched film and endorse the talented but debauched performance that the script will force you to give."
And I wrote one back with equal force, arguing why I thought this story and his character and at this particular moment in time was needed. WikiLeaks achieved great things all the way up to the 2010 big splash with the war logs and cables. I think the film celebrates that. I think it's far more diversive in its viewpoint and perspective than he feared it would be.
How do you play a man, though, who refuses to meet you?
It's hard. You do have to make leaps of faith. You do have to join dots, and that's where the fictitious element of a dramatization comes about.
You've said before that we're all citizens of democracy. How aware are you of the Snowdens and the issues that surround this debate?
Very. I mean, we are living in a time where in order to fight terrorism, we are eroding civil liberties at a rate that's a little alarming, really alarming, in fact. And yet at the same time, we need to save people's lives. I mean, it's very difficult to be completely clear-cut. I think it needs debate.
And debate is precisely what he believes the Fifth Estate will provoke.
This is information the world needs to know.
For This Week, Lindsay Davis, ABC News, New York.
The Fifth Estate is being distributed by Touchstone Pictures, a division of ABC's parent company, Disney. And with that, let's continue the debate. We turn live to Julian Assange, who joins us from the Ecuadorian Embassy in London. Thank you for joining us again, Mr. Assange. And you heard Benedict Cumberbatch there. He says he tried to neither glorify nor vilify you, and the film celebrates many of what he calls the great things that WikiLeaks has done. Do you accept that?
Well, Mr. Cumberbatch wrote me a charming, very polite letter, and with genuine concerns about the nature of the script being used in that film. He's reported to have said to Vogue and to The Guardian that he had fights with the director who wanted to present me as a quote, cartoon baddie. That's Mr. Cumberbatch's words. I don't want to put words into his additional words into his mouth, but of course he is under a contract and is limited to what he can say in the film. I do know that he tried to ameliorate some of the worst elements of the script, but unfortunately with limited success.
What's your biggest complaint?
I'm pleased he tried.
What's your biggest complaint with the film?
Well, I don't know where to begin. I mean, we released the whole script well before this happened. There was no approach to us by DreamWorks in any formal capacity whatsoever, other than the informal approach by Benedict Cumberbatch just days before shooting began. This is a film that is based upon my life's work, the work of my organisation. We have people in extremely serious situations. Sarah Harrison, who accompanied Edward Snowden out of Hong Kong, now effectively in exile in Russia because of the terrorism investigation here. Jeremy Hammond, an alleged media source to 25 organisations, including ours, up for sentencing in under a month's time. An ongoing grand jury investigation. What are the responsibilities for ethical filmmaking in that context? None of the suggested changes that we sent to participant media ended up even in the final text of the film. But there's been a big cashing in that has gone on.
You mentioned, Sarah Harrison.
A rich organisation that is. Yeah.
You mentioned Sarah Harrison, as you said.
This is a rich organisation, DreamWorks, that's making a lot of money and is intending to make a lot of money from this process. But there's no contribution to our defence fund, to the defence fund of our alleged sources, and so on.
Let me move on to Sarah Harrison. As you said, she's with Edward Snowden. We saw Edward Snowden this week receive an award from 4 American whistleblowers who traveled over to meet with him, and it was something that was facilitated by WikiLeaks. Of course, Sarah Harrison, a prime member of WikiLeaks as well. She's been with Snowden throughout his time in Russia. What can you tell us about how Edward Snowden is doing right now? What's next for him and for Sarah Harrison?
Edward Snowden is safe. We, through a lot of work, in particularly by Sarah Harrison, managed to gain him asylum in Russia after our attempts to gain him asylum in South America were thwarted in a very bizarre manner by the State Department by cancelling his passport while he was in Moscow. So he's safe. He's working to educate people, the journalists involved in these disclosures, as to what is going on. He very rightly received that award from former NSA, CIA, FBI, and DOJ whistleblowers, an award for integrity. It's a serious matter. It's a threat to US democracy and to democracy more broadly in the West, to have a surveillance apparatus on every single person that would have been the dream of East Germany.
Yet at the same time, those revelations from Edward Snowden came under strong attack this week from the head of Britain's domestic intelligence agency, M15, Andrew Parker, who called the leaks a gift to the terrorists. NSA Chief Keith Alexander said this week that people will die because of the leaks. Your response?
Well, we've seen this for 50 years. Every time the press embarrasses the security establishment, shows that they've been acting unlawfully, acting against what they have said to Congress or to the media, they trot out this old canard that some speculative harm sometime in the future might happen, when we're discussing harm that is happening right now. As a result of these abusive programs. The budget procedure you mentioned just recently, well, interesting side effect of that. The National Security Agency has used the debate in Congress to cancel even its own internal investigation. But the people on the review panel are unremunerated. It's quite interesting to see how Clapper or Obama says, yes, we need to have a debate, we need to have an investigation, everything must be under democratic control. But at the first instance that they can, as soon as there's a distraction, they try and subvert their promises to the public.
And what's next for you, Mr. Assange? Any chance you're going to leave that embassy anytime soon?
Well, I would leave this embassy. You know, it's a bit of a prison in some way, but I have good people here. But where would I go to? You know, I would end up in the outside world, where you are. But what is happening to the outside world? That's a much bigger consideration. It's a bigger consideration for me and my staff and the 12 different legal actions we have going in different countries. But it's a consideration for everyone. What type of place is Western democracy going to be? Is it going to be a place with a collapsing rule of law, with mass surveillance of entire populations, all the practical elements of a totalitarian regime? We don't yet have a totalitarian regime, but we have all the getting pretty close in the practical elements. Is that going to cross over into something else? That would be a hard place for an investigative organisation like WikiLeaks to work in. It is a hard place for Glenn Greenwald. He's now in effective exile in Brazil. Laura Poitras in effective exile in Germany. Sarah Harrison, a UK citizen, in effective exile in Russia. Edward Snowden in asylum in Russia. Me, asylum here. The West is becoming a place where the best and the brightest who keep the government, hold the government to account, are ending up in asylum or in exile in other countries. We've seen that before with dictatorships in Latin America, with the Soviet Union, and its time has stopped.
It's clear your fight is going to continue. Mr. Assange, thanks very much.